This video is the kind of video that you watch when you want to know everything about what it's going to be like when you give birth, everything you should know about pregnancy, and all things in between new mamahood, newborn stage, God knows what, we talk about it. I'm Queena, mama to a 6-month-old and fiance, as well as conscious business owner, someone who likes to do business but wants to do it in a way that is sustainable and supports motherhood rather than taking away from it. If you're new here, hello. If you're coming back, welcome back, my love. And I'm so excited for this video today and for us to chat about all of these things, because this is the video that I would have wanted to see when I was pregnant. Or even if you're not pregnant, you're about to be a new mom, you're wanting to get pregnant, you have just given birth, fill in the blank. This is for you. So I wrote down a few questions that I had when I was still pregnant. I had not ever been pregnant. I had not ever given birth. And I wish that I would have gotten these questions answered. So I'm about to answer them for you, tell you all about the nitty-gritty. Let's dive right into it. So the first question that I wrote down is, did you tear and how was the recovery process? Like I said, I'm wasting no time here. We're gonna get to know each other really well today. So I did tear, and this is something that we're all terrified about before giving birth. We think about tearing as the worst possible thing that can happen to us. It's going to be painful. Our vagina is never going to be the same. It's going to be horrible. We're going to tear front to back. It's really not that serious. It's really not that painful either. I tore and I didn't feel it. All I know is that right after I gave birth, I had my baby on my chest and we were having some skin to skin time, and there was a really kind nurse, actually the kindest one that I'd met that day, and she came and she was sewing up my vagina and she put a few stitches in there while we're having a conversation. I didn't feel any pain whatsoever, and that was it. That was the whole thing, the whole like big boom-an of tearing. It wasn't painful to be stitched up. It wasn't painful when I tore. I didn't even notice. I mean, while you're pushing out a football-sized head, I think that you're not really thinking about like, oh, am I tearing right now? What is happening? I didn't really specifically feel that. Just a lot of intensity, as you do when you give birth. But the healing process after tearing also was, nothing in particular, nothing specific. The stitches were self-dissolving, so after a while they just came out, and that was it. And that's the whole story about tearing. And my vagina actually, this is probably not for the internet, but tighter than ever. Yes. I will never recover from this conversation. So question number 2, kind of backtracking, was birth extremely painful? Now, I wouldn't describe birth as being painful. I think I would describe birth as being very intense. So as I was saying, before baby decided to be sleeping on her belly, which is still mildly terrifying to me, birth is more intense, to me at least, than it is painful. I know that if you're induced, it can be very different, or if there's anything medically that happens in order to start birth before it's really ready to go time, it can be a lot more intense. I think it's also different if you have an epidural, if there's anything other than natural birth involved. Obviously, I can't speak on that because I chose not to use any medication when giving birth. I actually just gave birth vaginally, naturally. And I think that what happens in that case is that it's really building on top of one another. Long story short, basically, I started to have contractions around, I think, 4 a.m. I slept until about 8. I had my gynecologist appointment at 11. And throughout that time, I was still able to speak. Around 11, it was quite a lot more intense than, previously. Obviously picking up speed and everything, but still not painful, like just very intense. Then I got to the hospital around 3. They gave me an enema that kind of increased the intensity. So that was the point where I wasn't able to really catch the next wave of contractions as easily as possible anymore. I think if I wouldn't have had an enema, it definitely would have been a different situation, but they're a little bit old school here. And then I basically gave birth by 6, and that was the whole process. It definitely increased in like intensity, and I wasn't able to catch it as much after I had the enema, like I said, but I think that it was still like manageable. You're just coming in and out of consciousness, kind of going between portals of death and life and all things in between. But I don't think it's painful as much as it's just really intense. I think that we are, made to give birth. I think that we're capable of doing so. I think that our body is powerful enough to really withstand everything that's going on in that moment. And I feel like as long as we surrender into the process instead of rejecting what is happening in that moment and sinking into that fear feeling that we have, I feel like it's really, really, really manageable, and everything, is quite intense, but not painful. Like when you're in it, it's just happening. Baby is going to come. So, you might as well surrender to the surges and fully like get into it and, be there in that place with your partner and like anyone who is around you and bring baby, earthside. Like, I feel like it's such a beautiful experience, and I think it was really intense. I definitely think that if we choose to have another baby, I want to try to at least be a lot more present or record most of it so that I have some kind of recollection. Yeah, that's kind of my 2 cents on that. I feel like it's just very intense, not very painful. Just like, yeah, it's birth, Next question. Again, we're going like in there. Were you scared to poop after giving birth? The truth is, because of all the stories that I heard, I was terrified to poop. I bought laxatives. I, was really, really, really trying not to poop for a while after giving birth. And it didn't happen that fast either. I think it was like 10 days or I don't know, maybe even longer until I pooped after giving birth. But when I did, I was pleasantly surprised. It was really not painful to me, like definitely a little bit different than before. I would say things are like sore and swollen still and all those kind of stuff, but I wouldn't say it's super painful. It's not painful at all, actually. I was really surprised. So in case you're scared to poop after giving birth, maybe you just gave birth, it's all okay. Everything is going to be just fine. It doesn't particularly hurt, at least in my case. And in case you feel like it is too intense, you can always use laxatives. If you gave birth again, what would you definitely buy? So I loved my Peri bottle. That was my ride or die baby. That thing saved my ass. When I was in the hospital, because you have to stay in the hospital. I stayed in the hospital for around 2 days, and it was right after I gave birth. And, you don't really want to be wiping all up in there with toilet paper and stuff. So I used this kind of like similar to Freedom box that they were selling at this fair, I suppose. And it had a Peri bottle. It had like some of those undies, the compressing ones, some anti-slip socks, some cold pads, some like regular like big pads, and it was amazing, honestly, and some like body oil and stuff. So I definitely would buy a care packet like that again. 100% would buy Peri bottle again. That compressing underwear, I lived like the boy shorts, I lived inside of them. Also, I bought myself some cotton boy shorts, like underwear style boxers as well, which I would definitely buy again. That was amazing. I love the experience. Definitely don't want to wear anything else, even to this day. Buy like gazillion massive pads. We all need them. The bleeding is really, really, really intense. Also, in case you don't know, there's like stages of the bleeding. It really doesn't smell very nice. It's not exactly the same as period blood. It has like a different type of scent, and you definitely remember that scent, even though I kind of forgot about it a little bit. But in that time, it's definitely not the most like fresh smelling thing. It almost smells like old blood, So that's something that definitely happens. There's no need to feel insecure about that because it's just normal. I think it's called lochia or something like that. So that's what passes after you give birth, and it kind of comes in these stages. Like at first there's some bigger blood clots that you're still passing, and then, down the line it starts to become a little bit more pinkish, and then eventually, it stops. How does it work with the periods? Because no one really told me about this, and I didn't know anything about periods post-birth. So I need to tell you guys because I feel like it's information that everyone should know and that we all want to know. I haven't had my period still. It's now 7 months postpartum. I am breastfeeding. So that is actually the reason why I haven't gotten my period back. When you're breastfeeding, it's actually quite common that you don't get your period back. Some people don't get it until like a year and a half after giving birth. Some people get it earlier. It kind of depends on the body and like everything. The hormonal change is definitely a lot more extended when you're breastfeeding, so take that into consideration. But in a way, it's kind of nice to not have your period after giving birth, and you're, a bit more comfortable. So I feel like I'm definitely not mad about it. But I didn't know that this was going to happen. I actually thought that I was going to get my period back straight after giving birth, which I think generally probably happens if you're not breastfeeding. Don't quote me on that because obviously that's not an experience that I've had before. But yeah, periods generally when breastfeeding don't come back for a while, and that's okay. And it's kind of the vibe. You don't want to be on your period taking care of a newborn and yourself and, anything of the sort. So I feel like it's quite convenient. Next, postpartum sex. I will spill the tea for us because, again, I was terrified. I told my partner as well, I'm scared. And actually the first, I think, few times that we had sex, I think we tried once, like relatively close after giving birth. I think it was like perhaps 3 or 4 weeks after giving birth, which gynecologists, please don't kill me if you see this because I know that we're supposed to wait until our 8-week appointment. But, things were going and flowing and we were both feeling attracted to one another. But that first time we tried, I was just a bit too tense, too stressed. It wasn't going to happen. So, we ended up just letting it go. And then we tried another time. And I think it's really important that you are relaxed, kind of tell your partner, like maybe he can set the scene and the setting. And, you need to take your time. And obviously that's like a little bit different now that you've given birth and everything has kind of changed and you're really in your mama mode. And sometimes that can fuck with the hormones that would make you horny. But I think that the most important thing is just to be relaxed about it, to be okay with the fact that it might not happen straight away. It might not go as you planned. Perhaps you're going to try a few times and it's not going to work out the way that you want it to. You're going to compare it to how sex was before you had your baby and it's going to be completely different. And that is okay and that's normal. I feel like that's something that all of us experience. Like we are not 100% the same person in terms of our hormones, especially when breastfeeding. So it's normal that, the situation is a little bit different. Do not compare yourself to your pre-birth, sex self. I feel like what I tell everyone and what I told my partner as well, I feel like I kind of regained my virginity after giving birth and I have to re-explore everything that I like and what I don't like. And, there's just a lot more stimulation and sensitivities and your system is kind of a bit overloaded. It's different to get into the mood. You're not having as much time to be in that sensual energy. And funnily enough, I think that being in a mother energy sometimes can be a little bit more of that masculine energy, because I think that we're a little bit more hyper vigilant and active and aware and constantly thinking about, is the baby crying? Is something happening? Is something happening? Our brain is just super hyperactive. So that doesn't really foster a very good environment for you being, in a state of deep pleasure where you're I just want to, be in this vibe with my partner and I want to be sensual. It's more a little bit more tight and hyperactive. So slowing it down and letting things come to you, letting things happen, but also trying to make an active effort to foster that connection between you and your partner. Maybe you can do that through a conversation so you can kind of share what you're thinking, what you're feeling. He can share what he's thinking and feeling. I think a lot of times postpartum and anything related to postpartum sex can definitely bring up a lot of insecurity or like a feeling of rejection for the partner, or, where they're not feeling 100% satisfied, which in this time is probably also normal, but also valid. Like that's something to talk about, and maybe to find a middle ground where he's feeling met and received and you're also feeling respected in your journey of healing. So, yeah, that's kind of what I took from the whole process. And in terms of actual like sex postpartum, I feel like it's not much different from sex, before you gave birth. I would definitely say that your pelvic floor is a lot weaker after you give birth. So I think that definitely affects some of the feeling. But once you're back into like activity and, strengthening your core and strengthening your pelvic floor, I feel like it's pretty much back to normal. I think the difference really lies in the system, like how the system feels and how you're responding to all the stimulation. And maybe there's a bit of overstimulation happening because you're feeling touched out. And, there's a lot going on with holding the baby and always, having your body available to baby. So before you guys decide to have sex, you kind of need to take some time to get out of the mom mode and get into I'm a sensual vixen, siren type situation. So what has worked really well for me some days, when we have the space and time, especially if baby is sleeping, is that I take like 5 or 10 minutes for myself. I turn on some music. I kind of, like move my body around, try to loosen things up, because I feel like things get really tight up in here when we are in the motherhood, like especially new motherhood, where there's a lot of stressors and things happening. So loosen up the body, really get into that relaxation, turn down the lights, maybe turn on some candles, either spray something in the air or spritz a little bit of perfume on your wrists, and just like get back into the body. Like I think that's an active practice that we need to go through when we are in the state of hypervigilance, or really being actively in the brain to be able to take care of our baby 24/7, to shifting to being in our more sensual body, our more feminine flow, our, like core, like rooted self. The last question that I wrote down is, how do you take care of yourself while taking care of a newborn? And taking care of yourself while taking care of a newborn in the beginning sometimes doesn't feel like as important. But to me, what really helped me in the process of healing postpartum is that I actively made it a priority to take care of myself. I would shower and get ready and everything in order to feel better, especially in that like beginning stage. I bought myself a bunch of really nice pajamas that I could wear in the house. I had some really nice slippers and all of this stuff that's going to make you feel better, like really luxuriating in these moments, and like doing skincare and self-care and braiding your hair and putting a hair mask in and doing a face mask. All of these things are essential for the healing of the soul, not even the body, but really the soul. Like re-nourishing yourself, especially in taking care of such a small baby. And, things can be really intense, like sleeping cannot be as regular and all of this stuff. So I feel like you should make it a priority to take care of yourself. And how to make that possible, like I'm not saying leave your baby in the other room and like leave them to cry and just take care of yourself, but we can involve baby in the process from a very young age. I would put my daughter in the bouncer. Like we have our bathroom and there's like, obviously like the wet area and then the dry area next to our sink. So I would put her next to the sink in a bouncer, and she would just be there. And at first I would put some toys in there, and then, eventually sometimes she didn't want toys. I would always talk to her and kind of engage with her. And over time, this has become such a regular process that she's now used to being in the bouncer when I'm getting ready and when I'm showering, and it really allows me to have this time to myself. She loves watching as I'm getting ready, and I love, that she's there to see that I'm taking care of myself and setting this example of, self-care is a priority. I am also a priority. I am also important. And while I am taking care of my baby, I'm also taking care of myself because I deserve to, and it makes me feel better. And your mental health is really important in this process, especially in becoming a mother, because everything suddenly starts to really rely on you and taking care of the baby. All of your emotions really are co-regulated with their emotions. So if you're really feeling unregulated and not taken care of and stressed out and like, it's really, really hard to co-regulate with baby and to take care of their emotions and your own emotions at the same time. So I feel like taking care of yourself is something really important, but maybe that looks a bit different for you. So what does it mean for you to take care of yourself? What are those practices that make you feel really alive and ignited and like refreshed? Do those things. It doesn't have to look like what it looks like for me, but it should look like whatever that looks like for you. This is another question that I think is really important. What is sleeping like in the newborn stage? So I think that every single baby is very different. Some babies sleep really well, some babies don't sleep very well. Our baby, when she came back home with us, did not have, obviously, a circadian rhythm whatsoever. So her nights were day and her days were night, which meant that oftentimes she would wake up in the middle of the night, let's call it like 2 a.m., and be awake until like 6 a.m. So one of us would have to stay up with her. And it was just like a very, very, very intense, I think, first like 2 weeks or 3 weeks before she started sleeping regularly. But once she did, she's still not sleeping through the night. She's still waking up multiple times every single night, breastfeeding. I think she wakes up about 3 times a night now. But since we are co-sleeping, which I said that I was not going to do after giving birth, we actually had like a co-sleeping bed next to the bed, but now she's just laying in our bed in between us, which, ended up being much easier for us. At first, it was really scary for my partner because he was like, what if I roll over and lay on her? But I slept with her in the C-curl position. So basically baby's over here and you're kind of like wrapped around her and your arm is like over her head and your legs are kind of curled around her bottom. And that also keeps your partner from rolling on her when he's asleep because you're kind of acting as like a fence between them. So that worked really well for us. I definitely saw an increase in like the quality of her sleep when she started sleeping in bed with us instead of me putting her back into her bed every single time, because I feel like whenever I would put her back and forth, she would wake up and then, she would be awake for much longer. Another question that I'm just thinking about is breastfeeding or pumping. And this is such a crazy thing because before I gave birth, I really thought that I was going to be pumping and I was going to have a freezer full of milk and which initially I started off pumping. I actually bought the Mom Cozy pumps, which are really, really nice if you do decide to pump. I'm also going to link them below because I did love them. I still have them. I'm just not using them. Don't buy a pump before you give birth. I bought one off of AliExpress as well, which I used in the beginning. I think it was like the first 2 weeks I was using that one, but then I wanted the hands-free ones because I was thinking that I was going to continue pumping. I'm also going to link the AliExpress one down below because it's really good. And I was so surprised. I used that thing so much and it almost drew out more milk than the Mom Cozy, 100%. It was so strong, so efficient, so good. I was pumping at first. I think I pumped for the first 4 weeks or so, but the whole process of bottles and sterilizing and pumping and bagging the milk and remembering to bag the milk and also in the middle of the night cleaning the bottle, cleaning the pump parts, cleaning the pump. It was extremely exhausting to me. It got me so tired to get up in the middle of the night, to go to the kitchen, to rinse the pump part so that I could again use it in the morning or something like that. And my partner was also waking up with me and giving her a bottle. And we really thought that that was a more efficient way. I was thinking, oh, it's amazing if he can wake up in the middle of the night with me and kind of help me out and I'm going to be tired and I don't know. Wouldn't recommend it to myself again. I definitely would immediately just breastfeed throughout the night. We did have to bottle feed her at one point because she would fall asleep on the boob when she was still really small. And we wanted to make sure that she got a full feed in. So we were bottle feeding for a certain period of time. But I would say, maybe 2 weeks or something. That is something that you could do. But for me, breastfeeding has been the easiest thing. When, she wakes up in the middle of the night and she wants milk, I just turn around, give her the boob, and we both go back to sleep afterwards. Breastfeeding was a yes, and it was much easier for me than pumping and dealing with all the bottles and the cleaning and everything. And there was just too much going on. And even when going outside and you have to put all this stuff inside of your bag, it just wasn't working out for me. So breastfeeding for me all the way. If there are any other questions that you guys have, feel free to leave a comment down below. I will definitely respond back, or even send me a message on Instagram if you want to have a longer chat. I loved having this conversation with you guys. I hope that it was so useful and that you feel fully prepared, or if you just came into motherhood, this is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful journey. And I really hope that you get to experience it in that way and just take a moment to take a breath and, be in the now, in the here, and go through the process of everything that's happening. I know that sometimes it can feel intense, or if you're not in that yet, it might become intense, but it's all so, so, so worth it. And it goes so fast. So hold on to it and be in this present moment with your baby and with your partner and with yourself, and allow everything to happen as it does. I love you guys so much. Make sure to like and subscribe if you want to see more of me. I'm so excited to create more of these kinds of videos and to see you guys in the next one.